Over to Senegal, where African nations have been presenting their plans to improve food security to development banks and international organizations in hopes of easing the continent's worst ever food crisis. Getting special attention calls for more funding for agriculture among African countries, as well as greater support for small-scale farming. The three-day summit in Dakar comes as the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and inflation have all ravaged global food chains and sent prices surging. The UN says more than 50 million people in East Africa alone face acute danger from hunger and malnutrition. All right, I'm joined now by Lawrence Haddad. He's Executive Director of the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition. That's a Swiss foundation launched more than 20 years ago at the United Nations with a focus on malnutrition. Lawrence, thanks for coming on to the show. First of all, how dramatic is this situation in Africa?
Hello, good to be with you. I've never seen it this bad in my career, in my life. It's the numbers of hungry people have risen dramatically since actually before COVID and before Ukraine. They were on the rise from 2016 onwards, and where they are now is about 800 million people suffering from hunger, which is about the number we had back in 2005. So this triple combination of COVID, climate, and conflict has turned back the clock about 15 years.
There's talk of reforming food systems at the same time that we're dealing with this kind of very acute crisis, as you've just elaborated right there. How difficult is that to rebuild a ship essentially while you're still trying to sail it?
You know, it's not impossible to do it. There are things that, of course, need to be done to meet the short-term emergencies, but policymakers have choices. They have choices to do things in the short run that also don't undermine the medium run. And after all, we all live in the medium run, really, especially our young people. So we need to do things to make our food systems more resilient, more diverse. For example, we're very in the food system is very dependent on a very small number of energy sources. The food system also grows a very small number of different foods, and we also grow them in a very small number of places throughout the world. So we need more diversity to be able to prevent and buffer the systems and people from future shocks.
When we say more diversity, where does that really come from? Is there a lack of ideas? Is there a lack of coordination? Is there a lack of funding? Where is the biggest need?
And there is a lack of funding. And for the first time, we have a roadmap. We know what to do to get from 800 million hungry people down to 200 million. We know that hunger is the result of three deficits: a deficit of food, a deficit of income, and a deficit of peace. And so investing in agriculture is the best way to generate that food, but critically, it's the best way of generating agriculture for the people who need it the most. So then we need to invest in agriculture. The international aid donors need to do much better. They need to double their investments. But also the governments of Africa need to do much better than they're doing. The targets they've set for themselves under the African Union process, they're woefully short of meeting it.
Is there also a role for private investment there? Briefly, if you can.
Private investments are absolutely critical, especially given that we have this roadmap of what to do, these 10 investment areas to reduce hunger. So we at GAIN are working with a number of big private companies to say, can you realign your investments in Africa around these 10 areas? In doing so, you will contribute to your bottom line, but also to reducing hunger.
All right, that's Lawrence Haddad. He's Executive Director of the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition. Thanks for coming on to the show.
My pleasure.